let's now get you a very disturbing story from the top of the world. Conquering Mount Everest is a lifetime dream for most climbers. However, decades of commercial mountaineering have turned Mount Everest into the world's highest garbage dump. A distressing video has surfaced that shows garbage, abandoned tents and plastic waste thrown at a camp on Mount Everest.
That's right. Remember, I come from Bangalore, garbage city, but this is garbage on top of the world. According to an estimate by National Geographic, each climber on Everest generates around 8 kilograms of waste, which includes food containers, tents, empty oxygen tanks, and even human feces. Exhausted climbers struggle to breathe and, battling nausea, often leave behind heavy tents rather than attempt to carry them down. All of that garbage remains in those snow-capped peaks of Everest.
Now, who better to understand this feeling than from somebody who's climbed the Mount Everest himself? We have Ajit Bajaj joining us on the broadcast, who's climbed the Mount Everest and also 6 other summits. Thanks very much, Mr. Bajaj, for joining us. So my first question, as a mountaineer, what is your emotion when you see piles of garbage on the top of the world? Mountaineers spend almost 2 months getting to the top of Mount Everest, and at the end of it, when you see this, what is your emotion?
So this video you showed, Priyanshi, is at the South Pole, which is 7,900 meters. It is inhospitable terrain. It is one of the windiest places on the planet. It is disheartening, no doubt, but I think as mountaineers, the onus is on us to leave the mountain cleaner than we found it. I must admit that each time I've been lucky enough to get to the top of one of the 7 summits of the planet with my daughter, I have often wondered about the state we are going to hand over this beautiful planet of ours, this magical blue marble, to our next generation. And I'd like to quote the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, who said, and I quote, "What we do today is our future. The earth, the air, the land, and the water are not an inheritance from our forefathers, but on loan from our next generation." So we have to hand it over to them, at least as it was handed over to us.
Right.
I think...
No, it's fascinating that you quote the father of the nation on this, and it's a fascinating thought. Can you compare for a solution subcontinental peaks with peaks around the world? Is this problem one of subcontinental peaks? How do peaks, perhaps some in Alaska, like what you mentioned you had climbed, follow best practices which ensure such garbage isn't left behind?
So, Veera Raghav, I think all the nations, the Himalayan nations, whether it's Nepal, which has 8 of the 14 8,000 meter mountains of the world, whether it's Bhutan, India, and we are custodians in India, we have 73% of the Himalaya in our country, or whether it's Tibet. There are strong regulations in position, but I do feel, and I feel strongly, that once again, we mountaineers have to have a strong leave no trace ethos on the mountain and in our wilderness areas.
Right.
Well, one of the best places as far as best practices are concerned on the mountain, last year my daughter and I were on Mount Denali, which is in Alaska in the United States of America. This is a beautiful mountain close to the Arctic Circle. Now the rangers, before we started climbing, they sensitized us, and we had a strict leave no trace ethos on the mountain. Even human waste was carried off the mountain. There was a method to the madness, but everything had to be carried off. And we left the mountain as clean as we found it. And I think as mountaineers and adventure people, that is the kind of spirit we have to go whenever we get to Mother Nature.
I hope a lot of young mountaineers are listening to you, Ajit. Thank you so much for driving that point home. It's important not just to be adventurous, but also be responsible in your adventure. Perhaps time, Riyanshi, to have a Swachh Himalayas campaign as well, not just a Swachh Bharat campaign.
Absolutely, for sure. With adventure, there comes great responsibility that should be kept in mind.